if we had not, my people had not stolen all the money, perhaps if my people had not actually been so corrupted in the meantime, perhaps we could have moved South Africa forward. Is there not an argument to be made for that as well?
You see, you white people have corrupted and captured the ANC to rule because, by the way,
Quite easily, it seems to
largest
be.
number,
Quite
the
easily, by
largest
the way,
number of,
Andile. It seems to have been a very easy process for
of
an
course,
organization that fought for 80 years, that was so highly respected internationally. And when you saw the first pot of gold, it seems to me you just rushed towards that pot of gold and grabbed that pot of gold over the rights and the dignity of your own people.
Of course, that is the kind of discussions that the white racists want to have.
Hi, Harrison X here. Welcome to the channel, Tik-Tel-Tales. The interview you're about to see or hear is probably the most intense and equally important conversation you'll ever hear between two South Africans. Andile Mngxitama, member of MK, and Johan, host of Afrikaner. The issue of land in South Africa is a serious matter indeed and requires very cool heads to prevail. I believe we all have different opinions on the matter, as I too possess a comprehensive understanding of both viewpoints expressed by the two gentlemen. As you sit down to take it all in, I beseech you to exercise impartiality in your own analysis and discernment. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, and please subscribe and follow. Let's go.
My guest is Andile Mngxitama. I'm not sure I say Andile's name right. You can help me out there, Andile. But welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for the invite. Yes, my name is Andile Mngxitama. It's got those clicks which we inherited from the Khoisan.
That's the sound. How do you say that sound, Andile? Is there a click to it?
Yes, Mngxitama.
Okay. I'm not going to try to repeat that.
Yes, no.
I told you the motive, Andile, of this interview is, since the whole thing happened with Donald Trump and the executive order, I interviewed quite a few Afrikaners specifically about this subject, and obviously asked them, not only how they feel about this invitation, but what does it mean to them. And there's also a certain irony, of course, in this invitation that Trump has made, and one can look at it very cynically as well. But be it as it may, in the process of these interviews and the reactions that I got to these interviews, your name got mentioned as an example of why people believe that there is, to call it, the most softest term would be friction between black and white, or that there is this hate coming from politicians such as yourself. You're the example of that hate. In fact, I just told you now, my guess is, if I may say so, as a white Afrikaner and from a white Afrikaner viewpoint and then a conservative white Afrikaner viewpoint, you're probably, likely, the second most hated man in South Africa. So
I wear that as a badge of honor. I'm hated by the right group of people, and for good reason.
Let's start with the Trump executive order. It's been some time now. It's much talked about here. I mentioned to you the things that people are really perplexed and surprised by that. And there is this cynicism and irony about the fact that it's the same people that created apartheid are now going to Washington and are talking about how they're being discriminated against. How do you feel about this? But more broadly, what kind of effect has it had on the black community in South Africa the last couple of weeks?
The Afrikaner, just like all the settler colonialists, are people from the West. Our Afrikaners here are people that came from Holland and are connected to the United States by whiteness, that they come from the Western culture and origins. And at the back of their minds, they always knew that whatever happens to them on the African continent, they have Europe and the white world to call upon and to go to. We must remember that apartheid was sustained and supported for a very long time by the West, the United States in particular. So when we call for redress to bring justice to colonialism, which is something which is cemented on the land question, these children of the West have Big Daddy, America, and Europe to call upon. And so Trump represents the conservative element, which is highly protective of its kith and kin, which is in Africa as settlers. So our call to intensify the project of returning land to Africans is going to annoy, irritate, anger the Western white world, and now here represented by Donald Trump. So Trump is simply protecting his family, and we've seen even now they kicked out the ambassador of South Africa, showing that white power will intervene to protect its progeny wherever they found themselves in. They have made a good example with Zimbabwe, because Zimbabweans had the courage to touch the white skin, and the white world has destroyed that country. As an example of what happens when you take land from white people, you will deal with the wrath and power of global whiteness. So Donald Trump is simply representing exactly that sentiment. And we, on the other hand, say, good riddance, let them all go to America and we'll live in peace in our country. We shall have addressed the colonial question, which is a settler colonial question, because Europeans have settled here in their largest numbers outside of Europe. So Donald Trump must take all of them so that we can experience peace.
How far do you go into this whole? The impression that you create with me is that the land belongs to the black people of South Africa and not to the white people. Is that a blanket thing that you're saying? That am I, as a white South African, to look at the country of my birth and say, well, essentially, I'm a settler. I came to steal this land. I took this land from its original owners. Therefore, the land does not belong to me. Are you, in fact, saying to me that you deny me my right to the land as a blanket statement?
100%. White people have no claim over this land. White people arrived here in 1652 on those ships with Jan van Riebeeck. And you started a big war. In fact, you started the war with the Khoi and the San. By the way, before the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck, Portuguese arrived there. And the San and the Khoi murdered them as a consequence of fighting over a natural resource, which is water. Then later arrived Jan van Riebeeck and started colonizing the African soil. Again, the first battles and the first Robben Island, where you sent Nelson Mandela for 27 years, the Robben Island, the first person to be sent there was a Khoi leader who was arrested for resisting European colonialism. So white people's claim to land is based on conquest. White people owe us our land back. Not only that, to create modern South Africa, you enslaved us, took the land, turned us into laborers in the mines that originally belonged to us, made us mine workers, made us farm workers to work on land which originally belonged to us, to create modern South Africa and to create this heaven on earth for white people and hell on earth for the black majority. This is the historical process which starts with the land theft. White people do not arrive here with land. How did you get this land here? We have a history of 100 years of war with the Xhosa people, with white people who arrived here. Of course, by the end of the 19th century, he had defeated us in those battles. But we fought for this land. And you defeated us because you had the Maxim gun. And by 1913, you were able to legislate the Land Act, which gave 87% of the land to the white settler minority. You sat in parliament and made a law to dispossess us formally through
Yeah.
legislation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a long history of land dispossession. It's based on war and conquest. And so when we say we want our land back, we simply want to reverse that historical fact.
Yeah, yeah. What I'm trying to establish here, Andile, is how absolute your absolutism appears to me to be, because man's history, human history, is filled with migration patterns, uh, land claims and reclaims, and wars being fought about land. I can right now, if I think in European terms, there are still some Germans that claim land that they claim belongs to them that are part of Poland today, and there's parts of Ukraine that the Polish would claim is very part of their land again. So I'm just curious as to how absolute this claim of yours, how far does it go? The other factor that I just want to bring into this equation as well, there is internationally recognized, at least within the United Nations and international law, the idea of birthright as well. So you seem to disclaim me a little bit from my right to be a South African. How far do you go in that claim? I'm not talking about just the physical land that you're talking about, but you seem to claim that because you were there before me, it does not give me any right to be part of the land at all. How far does that go?
The problem we have is you did not arrive here as visitors who came and coexisted peacefully with the original occupants. You came here with war of conquest. You killed, murdered massive people to claim this land. So the duty
But
of
let me just ask you this here before I forget the point. But did you not do the same? Were the Khoisan not people the original landowners, the Bantu people, as they'd known? I don't know if that's an offensive term or not an offensive word to use. Came, I think, according to the information I got yesterday, something like 1,750 years ago. We saw the first arrival of the so-called Bantu people. By that time, the Khoisan were a people there. You clashed with them as well. You took their land as well. You were at war with them as well. What is the difference, just in terms of the theory?
the first point is don't get involved in family affairs. We and the Khoisan are the same people. And like any family, we might have had our quarrels. That's got nothing to do with a foreigner that arrives here from Europe, armed with guns, to colonize, not just us. You decimated the Khoi and the San. You poisoned them. You basically eradicated them from the surface of the earth.
Yeah.
You have not accounted for that. You have not accounted for that. You have not paid reparations for that. You enslaved them. As I say, the first fight for land was with the Khoi and the San. And the Khoi and the San are Africans. You can, in fact, go up to West Africa, you'll find traces of the Khoi and the San. They might have migrated many times, different places, on their own continent. The fact that you arrived here at a time certain movements were happening inside the continent has got nothing to do with European settlers.
Yeah. Okay, I get your point. I get your point. My question to you then is that have I no birthright to South Africa, as is recognized indeed by international law and is recognized by the United Nations, the concept of birthright. Do you remove my birthright as well in the process?
As long as you have land that does not belong to you, you are a settler. Return the land, and we, as the original owners of this land, will determine your resident status. Until that historical question is addressed, we as Africans are reduced into refugees in our own country. You have all the land which you took by force from us. So how can we live in peace without addressing this question?
Yeah. No,
Until you address that
yeah.
question, you are settlers and colonialists who must be dealt with as foreigners.
So what you're saying to me is you totally reject international law. You totally reject the idea of my birthright. That just is not part of your equation in this matter.
Let me tell you
That in
something
fact
about
what you're saying, Andile, is that 4 million white people whose history might go back 450 years to the time of Jan van Riebeeck and the French Huguenot, all of those people, in fact, should be denied their rights. They, according to me, they internationally recognized birthrights to be citizens of South Africa. That goes pretty far, and you can imagine that if that is the point you make, I would imagine you're going to get some resistance.
international law. You know, apartheid was officially launched in South Africa in 1948. That is exactly the same time when the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, human rights, international law, have not served or protected us as Africans. In fact, it was not designed with us in mind at all. How could the United Nations declare a universal human rights sitting there with countries, South Africa included, by the way, when they said that there was this universal human rights? But those countries were colonialists. So they did not see Africans as humans, were not accounted for in the human rights rubric. We were subhuman. So don't tell me about international law, which never protected us, which does not regard us as human, was formulated by you people to legitimize your basically usurping lands of people and turning them into your own little countries. So please, we're talking about justice from the perspective of the colonized, and we have not been protected or served by the so-called international law.
I'm afraid, though, that I do think that you are going to run into a lot of problems. It's a little bit like the other night I watched the interview of Tucker Carlson with Aaron's Roots from AfriForum, and he was talking about some form of autonomy or some form of own homeland for that matter. And at some point in the discussion, I heard Tucker Carlson calling out, "That ain't never gonna happen." I tend to think that I would like to say to you that the absolutism that you're talking about, that ain't never gonna really happen, without, at the very least, an enormous and unfortunate amount of blood and pain. It is just simply not a solution for the problem. It seems to me, and the question I'm asking myself is, how serious must I take it? Because it ain't never gonna happen. These people are not gonna just disappear. 4 million white folks are not gonna just simply dissipate into thin air.
You sound like Ian Smith of Zimbabwe. He said at the time, as the Prime Minister of Rhodesia, that it never happened over his life. And the Zimbabweans went to war. They won that war. They took their country back. Not only that, they also took their land back. Of course, they were grossly, extremely punished for taking their land. Their economy was destroyed, their country was destroyed because they touched the white skin. But whatever happens now in Zimbabwe, Zimbabweans have their land. They are real citizens in their country. I am not a citizen in this country. I am a refugee, landless refugee. And you know what is said, which white people don't realize? As we travel from Johannesburg to Cape Town, we can see the expanse of this land which was taken from us. It is not just a conceptual issue. It is a physical reality that we live with every single day. We can see the land which was taken from us, the mountains, the rivers, the oceans, which were usurped by these so-called fellow citizens. And these fellow citizens do not regard this great um, gross misfortune that befell on us as something to be considered. It might not happen in my lifetime and yours, but certainly the message that this country belongs to black people is something that we're inculcating to the next generation and next generation. And there will be a generation which will certainly bring about justice.
I'm a little bit surprised, I must say, because I had the impression that you might be a very progressive kind of a mind, but what I encounter at the moment is something that you force me to call it fundamentalist. It's virtually as if you're undoing human history or want to undo human history. It's just the impression that I'm getting is that it's like a denial of historic facts. Migration patterns are not unique to South Africa. It's a phenomenon of mankind. We have moved across borders and land had been occupied and taken and stolen and fought for over, etc., and many forms. What we cannot do is undo the past. And what you're basically calling for, and help me if I say it if I say it in the wrong ways, you're really calling for the removal of all white people from South Africa, based on your claim that the land belongs originally to the black man of Africa.
How
am I right in that assumption? Is that what you're saying,
no,
really?
but how is stating a historical fact that Europeans are settlers and colonialists who
But you were
stole
a settler
our land?
too. You were a settler too. That's my point. Hold on.
Absolute rubbish.
You
I
may
cannot
say
be a
so.
settler in my own
Well, the continent doesn't belong to you. The continent doesn't belong to you. The continent belongs to all the people of Africa. You're one of the
And
many
I am an
peoples of
African.
Africa.
This is nonsense white
Okay.
racist thinking that
Okay.
somehow you can impose that I'm not an African and there is a piece of Africa which does not belong to me. I mean, I was born, bred here
Yeah.
and raised here. I did not come with ships. I did not colonize anyone. You are settler racists who are foreigners, and you want to insist on your right over our land that you took by arms, that you do not have a right over.
Let me ask you this question, Andile. There are in Holland here, where I live now, there are many black people from African origin that had been born in this country, are respected as Dutch in this country, with citizenship in this country based on the concept of their birthright, fully embraced and fully accepted and fully part. Should with this absolutism of yours, this absolute idea that you have about Africa only belonging to the black people of Africa and not to the people who are born there, that are part of that soil, how would you then deal with black people from African origin here in Holland or in France or in many other European countries? Would you have to de facto get rid of them as well, because the land never belonged to them?
How did they arrive in Europe? Did they come there as settlers? Did they fight and enslave a European and Hollanders? No. In fact, I know for a fact
a lot of them, my friend, came through illegal means. If you really track it back, a lot of them came through illegal means and became and because we respect human rights and because we respect the idea of birthrights, we actually are open enough to say they are part of us. They belong here. We don't discriminate against them. We don't want to chase them into the sea. They're part of this country. They're Dutch. We call them Dutch. So I'm just talking about what surprised me. All that I want to say to you is what surprised me is how absolute you are in terms of how you see how black and white you are. In fact, there's no wiggle room here for just very, I would imagine, respected ideas like the fact that I'm born in that country gives me some right to that country and a right to be there. As simple as that.
No, well, let's clear the false dichotomy you're trying to draw between immigrants who mostly run away from their country because of Europeans who are creating wars for the minerals in those countries. When they arrive there, they must go through a whole system, but they don't take land of Europeans. They don't come there as settlers. They don't enslave people in Europe. They don't colonize any lands of Europeans. They are,
No,
they are, they are mere workers who
yeah, I hear
come
what
there
you
to
say.
seek
I hear what you say. Yeah, I hear what you say. So what you say is, in fact, that America's history should be turned around as well. America should go back to the Indian people that lived there before. What you say is that the Aboriginal people of Australia are the original people. Therefore, we should deny the people that came after them, took their land, stole their land. We should deny them that right as well. We should ignore all of history, and we should go back to very, very purist ideas. That's more or less what you're saying to me.
So,
And I'm
so
just saying to
you,
me, and I'm just saying to you, Andile, that I understand your passion and I even respect your passion, but I just don't see it as a workable solution for the future. I just don't see how you get there without an enormous struggle and pain and a lot of unfortunate. It is just, it seems to me just an unachievable dream.
so basically, you accept that Europeans arrived in the United States, murdered Aboriginal people,
It's
the
a historic
original
fact.
people,
It's a historic fact. It's a
and now
historic
you're
fact. I don't
saying
have to
that.
discuss that. It's an historic fact. Right?
So all, but you are saying we must just accept it as a fact and keep on living. It's fine. It has happened. They don't have their country,
I'm saying to you,
just like in
Andile,
Australia.
I'm saying to you, Andile, that 500 years ago there happened to be a war between two nations in which one nation raped the other nation, took the land. It's an historic fact, and 500 years later, their grandchildren live in that land. These are historic facts. That's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that I find it rather almost bizarre, the idea to think that based on this claim of yours, we're going to get rid of 4 million or 6 million or whatever white people in South Africa. Magically,
But
we're going to
but
be able to get rid of them based on this purist idea of yours. All I'm asking for, in fact, is a little bit of, I would imagine, even just simple pragmatism. We, as much as Julius Malema would say we will, and I'm not sure if he said that or not, said or wish that the white people of South Africa must be chased into the oceans, as much as white people might think that it would be wonderful to chase the black people into the oceans. These are just not practical solutions for the future of the country.
you know something I find very strange, how you equate the demand for land redress
I
to
didn't do that
chasing
at all.
white
I didn't do
to
that at all.
chasing white people to the sea, to murdering white people. I don't know how
But you just
you
denied me my right
equate
to
these
exist.
two
You just
things.
you just denied me my South African citizenship. So what equation should I make?
Well,
How
just return the land. That's all we are saying. It is you who equate our call for justice to call for decimation and murder of white people. We've never said so. We're saying to white people, you are settler colonialists who have stolen our land. And we can see that that historical fact manifests today. The majority of land is in the hands of a white settler minority. This is a historical fact which manifests today. It is not something of the past. And we are saying, if you want to live in peace with us,
I strangely enough agree with you, Andile. I agree that land, if stolen and it can be proven that it's stolen or illegally gotten and so on, there must be some kind of a mechanism. I agree with you. The land must go back to its original owners, and so far as we can do it. But there's not a blanket kind of a thing. The land belongs to black people or the land belongs to white people. I think even if I'm correct, I even think the Freedom Charter says the land belongs to the people who live there, who born there, who trade the land.
yes,
So I'm
The
not saying
Freedom
that
Charter
land.
was written.
I'm not suggesting at all that land should not be returned if and where stolen or taken or gotten by illegal means.
How did white people get land here? Since you come from Europe, you didn't
Well, I
bring
would
any
imagine
land
the
with
same
you.
way. I would imagine the same way the Xhosa people, when they originally came to South Africa, got land there as well.
The
Probably
Xhosa,
through some wars with the Khoisan people, some clashes, some struggles for land, and processes of assimilation. But the same way, I would imagine, in some form or other.
you are equating European settler colonialism with African settlement patterns, which is certainly incongruent. You are colonialists, you are invaders, you are foreigners, you are oppressors, you are usurpers. I mean, you have all the wealth today. How did you get that wealth? As a result of colonialism and oppression. And you had
You're
established an
right. I
apartheid
get that.
system,
I
which
get
by
that, but
law oppressed us. By law,
yeah,
you
I get
made
that.
laws
I
to
get that.
oppress us and to kick us out from certain parts of the land still,
I get that.
even after 1913. So
Yeah.
you have not paid reparations for colonialism, for apartheid. You have not returned our land. Not one white person have any right to any piece of land in this country. All of it goes back to colonial theft and colonial conquest. And we are anti-colonial. We are trying to bring justice and to quarrel with history. We will not settle with history because it's an unjust history.
Yeah. There's a lot of unjust history in all sorts of parts in the world. There's a lot of really bad things that have
I
happened.
don't care. I don't care
But
for other parts of the world. I
yeah,
care for the unjust history which impacts directly on me and on my people and my country.
yeah. I suppose the way you and I do differ from one another, Andile, is I accept certain historic facts, and I accept the presence of the white man as an historic fact, however you wish to label it. And I just do not see that it is feasible, possible to design a political future or an ideal based on trying to get rid of the historical given fact that there are now something like 4 to 5 or whatever 6 million white people in the country. It is just simply not feasible and pragmatic in any way, and it will not. The South Africans will not allow that, and certainly the rest of the international community would not allow that. I'm trying to find ways in which we can reach one another. I'm trying to find ways in which we can.
I appreciate a wide perspective. I appreciate your conqueror's perspective. You are insisting on me accepting the terms of our defeat, to accept the terms of colonialism, to accept the terms of apartheid, to accept the terms of racism. I'm simply saying no. We're going to have this fight until justice happens from my perspective as a victim. You represent the perspective of the conqueror, and I appreciate that and understand that. You and your people defeated my people, where we speak as a defeated people who must organize ourselves to find justice, to correct the historical injustice which has been perpetrated on my people by your people. Your perspective is valid from your point of view, but I contest it 100%.
Yeah, but what do we do with it then, Andile? What do we do with it? How do we get out of that then? How do we find a space at which you and I can live together in peace? How do we move forward? I can see clearly that the historical injustices must be addressed, but I would also imagine it must be addressed in a way in which you don't destroy the totality. So I'm trying to find some form of how do we move forwards in a pragmatic way that gives justice to those that had been taken from, without having to destroy the entire thing, without causing a new war, a new battle, which I can tell you right now, you're not going to win and I'm not going to win. How do we get out of this whole thing?
Nelson Mandela tried reconciliation without justice. So let us come together. Let us forget the past. Let's live together without addressing the question that brought about the conflict. And South Africa is no near any racial harmony 30 years after, because the source of the conflict was not addressed.
Yeah.
You want us to simply move forward.
No, it's not what I want at all. Not what I want at all. I think it's more nuanced than that. I reject the idea that you say. I reject what you just said now, because I want justice for you as well. The only thing is that I do not want to destroy everybody in South Africa. I just want to find a way in which we can do it. Let me ask you this question. The deal that was made in Kudesa in 1992, when the new South Africa was constructed. Are you saying, and that's what I get, did Nelson Mandela sell out?
That deal was
Did Nelson Mandela sell out?
Of course, that deal, its terms, was a retreat from demanding justice. Mandela wanted to get the ANC into power so that the ANC can do the right thing. And that deal was to simply make sure that white people surrender the state to a black majority. The job of transformation was to happen after the ANC's first 5 years, because that Mandela deal, remember, was for 5 years. The sunset clauses where they would have to co-govern with the National Party and all that. But after 5 years, then the black majority should have been able to kick on and kick in. And in fact, the ANC got two-thirds majority. They could have amended that constitution of compromise of Nelson Mandela. They were now in power. They control the state. They control the instruments of violence of the police and the secret services and all that goes with that, which was the instruments of oppression used to oppress us, to undermine our efforts for liberation. Nelson Mandela basically gave us a breather by making that compromise. That compromise was not to be permanent, but you white people want to make it permanent to make sure that we do not get our land back.
Let me just react to one thing. You keep on saying you white people, and that your you is very much in your face, with your finger poking in my face. And I appreciate that and I respect that. But let me ask you this. 80 years of a struggle for freedom in South Africa for the black man. 80 years of noble struggle for the African National Congress. And yet at CODESA and what happened before CODESA, they seem to have gotten by the rich and powerful in South Africa. They seem to have sold out their ideals for a bag of gold.